Okay, it says we are live, or is it live in 1 minute?
I think we're live.
We're live, fantastic. Hello, good afternoon, or good morning to you, depending on where you are and what time you are watching this. If you are here, say hello. Always nice to hear that we've got someone listening to us, so we're not just talking to ourselves, although that would be fine as well. So if you are watching, let us know. Say hello in the comments, put hashtag live if you're here live. If you're on the replay, then tick hashtag replay. I can't see any comments coming in yet, so come on, show us some love. Show us that you're here. And we'll get cracking very shortly. So, and let us know, are you listening on Facebook? Are you listening on LinkedIn or YouTube or even the podcast? But podcast, you won't see that yet. That comes on later. So clearly you're not on the podcast, but you might be on Facebook, LinkedIn or YouTube. So let me know. I am very pleased to have with me today, Lucy Cohen. Hi, Lucy.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, how are you?
Good. I'm very well, thank you. And if you haven't yet caught up on previous episodes, so a quick intro, as it were, to this series of sessions. This is now episode, I forget, I think it's 17 in my series of interviews with accountants doing great things, accountants in the trenches. And if you haven't yet caught up on the others, you can catch up on my podcast, which is called Transform Your Profits, as you can see up there, or on my YouTube channel as well. Type in my name and you'll be able to find it and catch up on interviews that I've done with some great accountants. Off the top of my head, people like Paul Barnes, Jerry Williams, Francesca Tricarico, Jeffrey Lerma, to name but a few, but lots and lots of great nuggets from those conversations. So go and catch up on those if you haven't already, but not yet after this interview with Lucy Cohen. Oh, fantastic. We have some people watching us. Excellent. So hello there, Nikunj on YouTube. Hi there, Fozia. Hello there, Facebook user ×2. Unfortunately, if you haven't yet accepted the little invite from Facebook, then it doesn't show your name unless I come and see you on Facebook. So if you're on Facebook and you put a comment in and you haven't allowed Facebook to let me see what your name is, just put your name afterwards so I can give you a shout out and call you out by name. Anyway, let's get cracking. So I am fortunate to have with me today someone who probably doesn't need any introduction in the accounting profession. Lucy, if you're an accountant, you probably have heard of Lucy. Lucy's been fairly active on the circuit, as it were, in terms of accounting influencers. She's been very active on the likes of Accounting Web. Her firm has won many awards, and she has as well. So I'm really excited to hear Lucy's story of how she took her firm called Mazuma from 0 to 2,000 clients in less than or just over a decade. So enough from me. Over to you, Lucy. Give us a bit of a background in terms of you, how you got into accounting, when you set up your firm, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I'll give you the potted history. I never set off in life to be an accountant. I don't know how many of us actually did. Apart from my business partner, who always wanted to study accountancy, so she's maybe an anomaly. I don't know. But yeah, I started off. I come from, winding it all the way back, I come from a very creative family. So my family are all actors, dancers, musicians. And I really wanted to go and study drama at Exeter University. So I finished my A-levels and got the grades and had my place, and something just didn't feel right. And I deferred for a year and went to work in film and TV, like dream job, you know, just landed on my feet there. I say landed on my feet, I'm pretty cheeky. So kind of blagged my way into this and worked on kind of a few films for about 18 months. And this was a thing that I wanted, I always thought that I wanted to do. And it turns out I hated it. Like, I absolutely hated it. I hated the hours. I hated the people. It was like, but no, there were some lovely people. But you just spend your whole time. It's not glamorous, and you spend your whole time like standing in wet fields, in the rain, in waterproof gear, not schmoozing around TV studios. So it kind of wasn't what I thought it was be. Granted, at this time I was only 19, so. So I just kind of had a bit of a, all right, what on earth am I going to do then? There doesn't seem much point going to university if that isn't the path I want to take. So I went to see a careers advisor, and they were like, well, you're pretty academic, you're quite logical. Have you thought about accounts? And I'm like, yeah, great, sounds good, let's do it. So I waltzed over to Jury's Hotel Group, it was at the time, And I was like, have you got any jobs in accounts? And they were like, that's really weird you've said that. But yeah, we have actually. We've got a purchase ledger clerk job going. Do you know what that is? I was like, no, but I will learn. And that's where it started. I studied in the evenings, went to college in the evenings. And that's where it all started. And because of my family's background, so as I kind of, my experience in accounts grew, I kind of realized there was this real gap in micro business space, sole traders, self-employed people, owner managed companies, what we used to call, getting really poor service out there in the industry. This was 15 years ago. I've been at this 15 years now. So this was pre-cloud software. This was when you used to have to like install stuff on your desktop with a CD-ROM. This was in the days when having a subscription for an accounting service was unheard of, was literally unheard of. Having anything other than just billing by the hour was unheard of, or per 6 minutes. And I saw the struggle of my family, in January, the flap and the stress and the tax bill and the deadlines, and it was just miserable. And I was like, you know what? There's got to be a better way of doing this. And we didn't grow up with very much money when I was a kid, so having a steady income has always been really important to me. Several therapists have identified that from me. Having a steady income is really important to me, having that kind of financial stability. And so I was like, well, I'll just get everyone to pay me, monthly, split it up, pay the monthly, make a subscription. That's it. So I know where I stand then. And kind of inadvertently invented a subscription model. And I didn't go into it thinking at the age of 23, right, I'm going to invent a subscription model accountancy service. But that's kind of what happened. The first business advisor that myself and my business partner ever went to see told us it would never work. You couldn't rebrand accountancy. There was no way this was ever going to take off. And again, classic me, just decided he was absolutely wrong. And he was. And that was 15 years ago. And we started off with about 100 quid in my spare bedroom. And we used to share a printer cable because, we didn't want to buy an extra printer cable. And we used to have 2 phones. But we used to have to, this is before smartphones were a thing. I used to have a little flippy Motorola thing. We used to transfer the call by a bit like when you're sat on the stairs on the phone and your mum picks up the other end when you're a kid. You're like, Mum, get off the phone. This is showing how old I am now. There's probably a lot of young people watching this going, I've got no idea what she's talking about. On landlines, that's what we used to do. So we used to pick up one side and the other person picked it up and the other person put it down to transfer calls. There was a lot of pretending I was the secretary to take messages for myself for later in the day. It was all that, and we couldn't borrow any money. We started in 2006, and then the credit crunch happened, a massive financial crash, and we couldn't borrow any money. We couldn't get an overdraft. We couldn't get a credit card. So we just had to learn to be very lean, learn how to make that kind of subscription model work for us in terms of we need a guaranteed income, we need an easy way to bill it, and we need to make sure every client's making us enough money to pay ourselves, but also to put money back into the company to grow it. And really, that's kind of how it started. That was 15 years ago. And I feel like I've been a startup kind of maybe 5 or 6 times over the last 15 years because there's always a new thing. There's always a new challenge. There's always a shift in the world or in business or in technology that means you've got to go back to the beginning a little bit and go, right, okay, the world's changed. How do we address this? Classic example, the internet. When we started and we bought our first website, the web designer told us, well, the thing is that you're a professional service. Your website is basically just a brochure for your firm, an online brochure for your firm. You have to have it, but no one's really going to look at it that much. Social media wasn't a thing. The world's completely changed in 15 years, and so we've ridden that wave quite a lot over the last 15 years. And like I said, I feel like I've been a kind of startup 5 or 6 times during that time period.
Amazing! What a story! So good to hear in terms of where you started out, and I can absolutely relate. I'm probably a bit older than you, so I can absolutely relate to the landlines and get off the phone, running the phone to your friends. So definitely. So, and I think we started around the same time. So I started around 2008. So absolutely credit crunch time when things were a lot different than they are now.
Yeah.
So, what a story. And so what would you say in terms of kind of your journey? Because you've gone on a fairly fast trajectory. So talk us through kind of your kind of growth over those years. You're at 2,000 clients now. What were you doing? What do you think made you different that enabled you to bring on so many clients so fast, to scale as rapidly as you have done? Maybe share, 2 or 3 things that
Yeah.
were integral to that happening.
Yeah, so I mean, we're a bit over 2,000 now. We've got some pretty aggressive growth plans over the next couple of years. We should be kind of heading for that kind of 10,000 mark in
Wow.
the next kind of couple of years. So a few things we've done that. First of all is only and very stringently taking on the right clients. There's absolutely no way you don't want to have a leaky bucket, right? There's no point bringing on a client because it takes time and energy to bring on a client and get to know them. That first 3-month period is a real loss leader in terms of subscription services because we're getting to know the client, we're understanding them, we're making all the notes, we're training them a little bit how to get their stuff to us. After that, when it gets easier, it kind of starts. I imagine like training a dog or a child. It gets a little bit easier. But that you don't want to take people on if they're a bad fit because within 3 or 4 months they're going to leave. And then you've wasted all that time and resource. That's a real problem. So you can't have a leaky bucket in subscription services. There's too much front loading of investment to do that. So you have to be absolutely razor focused on who your clients are. Put your personas out and only go after those. And if someone comes into you and goes, "Oh, my friend recommended me, I really want to use your services," you go through the questions, you qualify them to make sure that they're the right client. And if they're not, you say, "I'm really sorry, we're not the right service for you, and this isn't going to be a match, but I can refer you to." You have people in your back pocket you can refer on to, so you can give them a hug as they leave. That is one absolute razor focus on the right client. Always have had that.
And who is that? Sorry, Lucy. Who is that kind of right client for you?
So we're micro. So we're talking sub 250k turnover, fewer than 5 staff. I mean, around 50% of our client base aren't even at VAT registration threshold. So we're talking like real kind of low high volume, low fee market. The other thing is having replicable processes within the business. So you can't scale if you do something different for every client, or if you're at volume is what I mean. So you can't. Our profit margins are tight. So we have to have everything absolutely. It's manufacturing, but it's a manufacturing line. It doesn't sound very sexy, and it's not a really good sales pitch. Like, oh, we're like manufacturing, but we have to use a manufacturing business model applied to a business process. Because otherwise, if we start having to, which is why we ended up going to kind of stepping on point 3. Technology, why we ended up developing our own technology, because we couldn't be in a place where we were logging into all different systems for all different clients and being software agnostic and all that stuff. Because if we charge more money, yeah, maybe we could, but we don't. And that's not our model, and we know who we are. So yeah, having absolutely stringent processes, really locking those down and not deviating from them. Even if someone's like, "Oh, can you just, couldn't you just do this?" No, we couldn't. You don't ask Netflix, couldn't you just show me these ones? Or couldn't you just do this instead? Couldn't you just make some more TV shows that I'd like? That's not how a subscription works. A subscription, you subscribe to what's offered and you take it or leave it. So getting that in, which is, as you can imagine, a huge client education piece, like that's really hard to do. And then the next is technology. So we've used technology. We've been very selective in what technology we've used. We've been super selective in how we've implemented it. There's always a test measure, and we're not afraid to ditch something if it's not showing us results. I haven't got time for you'll see results for this in 2 years. That's not us. We're very fast paced. Like I said, subscription. If results that the ROI is not coming quickly enough, we just ditch it. And then revert. So we always kind of have like that little overlap of a dual run. And technology. So we've actually developed our own technology this year, which deals with that gap I think there is between accountants who we started off making it just for ourselves. We built this just for us, and now a bunch of other people are like, "Oh, can I use it?" And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, maybe you could." We've got a huge scanning suite in our office. So we've got these machines that you basically hurl paperwork at them, and it goes, and it'll take everything from like here to like teensy wincy here, handwritten, all the rest of it, scan them, sort them, upload them, character stuff, all the fancy IT wizardry, and do that. So we can kind of essentially rent that facility to other people who don't have that kind of volume, who take them all day to kind of sit there and scan their clients' paperwork, because those machines aren't cheap. So we had the capital to do that, and we did that, which meant that we could still service the market that we kind of put them into two cohorts. So we've got ProTech, and they're who everyone talks about. They're ProTech, they'll snap and send, they'll use a bit of software, they'll raise invoices, they'll, they're online natives, digital natives. And then there's No Tech, who are people who I don't want to use the word Luddites, but they're behind the curve. They're going to be a nightmare for you as a client trying to get them onto QuickBooks or Sage or Xero. Other software vendors are available, apparently. It's going to be a nightmare for you to get them on there. We've built something which can bridge that gap, which is we can literally take their physical paperwork, make it digital, extract the data, and then send it off to wherever you want to send it off to. So we ended up kind of accidentally building that, but it was just just to meet our own needs. There's nothing out there that did it, so we're like, well, we can invent something that did. So that's what we've just finished up on this year, and we've just started implementing. As with all software development, it took about 6 months longer than we thought, and cost a bit more than we thought, but we've just started rolling that into our client base now. All new clients going onto it, and slowly phasing in existing clients into it. So yeah, that's technology's been a big part of that scale.
Fantastic. No, that's amazing. And I love what you said there about, if it's not working for you, if it's failing, then we ditch it. And accountants get into that mindset because they're quite, methodical and perfectionist, that they won't actually launch something until it's absolutely perfect. Whereas you come across a bit more entrepreneurial minded, that let's just do it and we learn from it. If it works, great, we'll keep developing it. If it doesn't, we ditch it and we go elsewhere and we try again. That's great to hear.
Absolutely. Do you know what? It was actually a phrase which one of my friends, her therapist, told it to her when she was getting divorced. Don't recommend that as a business coaching method, but they said, just because you've spent a long time making a mistake doesn't mean you need to keep doing it. And when you apply that to business, it's sunk cost fallacy, right? So just because you spent a long time making a mistake or putting a lot of money into something, if it's not working, you have to learn to cut your losses. Part of business is losing a bit of money every now and again, because if it's always safe, then you're never going to get anywhere. The world innovation doesn't happen from people who sat around doing what's always been done.
Absolutely, definitely. And for sure, going back to what you said about really focusing and knowing who your ideal client is, and I think that has been the key to your success. I mean, you are very clear about your market, and it's something I talk about in my framework as well. To build a profitable accounting firm, one of those pillars is positioning. You need to know exactly who you serve and how you serve them, and that is what will give you a competitive advantage. But most of the time, because I think you've pulled off in a market which it's very hard to compete in. So really, as Michael Porter would say, there are only two strategies when it comes to dominating a market, coming to having competitive advantage. One is low-cost leadership. The other is high-value differentiation. Now, most accountants fall in the middle, so don't actually achieve either. And when they try, you can succeed and you can be really profitable in low-cost leadership, but you have to be extremely efficient, and you have to really know your market, and you have to be really streamlined, and your back office has to be so slick and streamlined. And it's the likes of Ryanair or Aldi or Lidl, and they pull it off. But there's not much room in the marketplace for those players. And but you know exactly where you are, and you know how to command and control that particular marketplace, and that's why you're being so successful at it. But it's not for everyone. Like you say, the barriers of entry are very difficult because you've spent so long in getting those back office procedures so automated, so slick, that you can still command a profit at the level of prices that you're charging.
Yeah, absolutely. It isn't easy, and we've also seen that kind of model be very challenged over the last, probably I'd say 5 years in particular, with the advent of social media and it being a real place where people expect everything immediately. When we started telling people you could have a 5 working day turnaround on your books, everyone's like, oh, that's amazing. Wow, that's so much quicker. And now you've got like adverts on TV going, see your results in real time. And I'm like, oh, but they're not real results. But no one understands that. We have to message against that, and we butt up against that a lot, and we have to be very clever and quite brave in how we stand there and go, no, do you what? Yeah, you can have real time if you want to pay an accountant to stand next to you all day whilst you purchase things to your business, but otherwise it's not real time accounting information. It's real time data, but that data doesn't, as we all know, rubbish in, rubbish out. So it's quite brave for us to be able to tell our clients, no, because you're going to do it wrong. So this is why we do it the way we do it, is because you're going to do it wrong, and that's fine, because I'm not going to cut my own hair or build my own house. So that's all cool. Yeah, it's quite we have to be quite bold in terms of doing
Yeah.
that, and again, that isn't a strategy for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's talk about subscription a little bit more then. So talk to me about, kind of your price points, because I believe they are on the website anyway.
Yeah.
And, when did you, and how would you, clearly, this is a lot of accountants won't be able to get their head around the fact that, if someone comes to you and after 2 months, if they've got year ends to do, then you'll just do them anyway, even though they've only paid you a month or two. So talk us through the thinking behind that and how you make that work from something that would seemingly be, wow, if someone comes to you in month 1 and month 2, gets all the work done and then leaves, surely you can't make any money. So,
Yeah. So we do obviously have a few kind of ifs, buts, and caveats in terms of how we get people onto subscription. So yeah, it is true. Someone could sign up with us in month 11 and get all their stuff in, and hypothetically speaking, could get their they'd be eligible to have their year-end accounts and things done because their year-end has passed. They would be eligible for it. But we've been able to build in a little bit of wiggle room around that. So we look at urgency. So realistically speaking, very few people come to you the month of their the day their year end needs doing, with all their documents ready, in place to be done instantly, and we can get them done within that month. So already we're kind of, that subscription is already kind of rolling a little bit. Because we've got SLAs, like all subscriptions, they've got their terms agreements. With your broadband, you can't download too much, or I don't know the technical terms for this, but even every subscription even has got kind of quite stringent terms of use around it, and fair usage policies as well. We have fair usage policy, which is something that's quite very unusual in accountancy, but very commonplace in subscription services, to have a fair usage policy, which basically gives us the right, if we say to you, look, you're taking the mickey now, you're on the phone 8 hours a day, it's not in the spirit of what we're providing here. We think this isn't, we just say we think you're not a good fit for us, that you're looking for something more we can't provide you. But ultimately, this is all about averages and percentages. This is all about it kind of working out. So there's some clients that will make us a really good profit every year, and some clients that probably make us a loss. But overall, we know our margins per type of client, and we look at things in terms of types rather than an individual client basis. Everything's very highly tracked. We use time tracking software per client, so we know how much contact time staff are having, how much time they're on the phone, how much data storage they're using, all that sort of stuff. And it means then that we can always evaluate the makeup of our client base. So look at kind of who's using it, and then adjust our marketing accordingly. So maybe we've had a couple of months where there's just April, for example, always get a load of sole traders sign up in April and January, obviously. They're not money makers for us, really. They're kind of they make us our lowest margins. And non-VAT registered sole traders, £28 a month, they make us our lowest margins. So we could maybe turn off our advertising to that group if we wanted to attract some higher value clients over the next couple of months, or we could add additional revenue into advertising to target other markets. We can go and fish in different ponds if the makeup of what we're doing doesn't quite fit. So we constantly kind of balancing our client base to make sure that we don't get a situation where all 100 clients that have signed up all have a year end due tomorrow and all expect it then. We're able to balance that, and we can only do that because we've got 15 years of data. We've got 15 years of data of people's behaviors, of how they behave when they purchase, the emotion behind purchasing decisions. We know. So, for example, we know on average how many responses from one of our accountants it takes on average to satisfactorily answer a client query. When we start seeing those metrics creeping up, we know we've got to pull a lever somewhere to kind of bring them back down again. Otherwise, the whole thing, it's like making a cake. You get one ingredient slightly out and your cake goes kaput. It's a little bit like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what was pertinent there that you said, it's not about kind of profit per client, it's about profit across the portfolio.
Yeah.
Yes, you'll have some clients that generate you a greater return and others that won't, but it all kind of balances it out in the end. So what is that kind of variance then? So you said £28 a month for the sole traders. What is kind of the top range subscription package that you could have with Mazuma?
Around £130 a month. Higher if you add on other extras.
Right. Okay. Fantastic.
So there's quite a variance there, as you can see.
Yeah.
And yet the process for both of those clients and the process in terms of what we do and how we do it. So, oh yes, some of the outputs are different because they have additional things, but that process remains the same for both.
Mm. Okay. And I mean, when did it kind of dawn on you that this was the way to go? So like you said, you kind of stumbled across a subscription, and then when did you actually focus on actually, no, this is a fundamental part of what makes us different and what the market will be willing to pay for? And given that, everything else in our world is turning to subscription and Netflix and Uber and, all these Grace boxes and shavers and everything else. When did you think that actually, we're onto something here? We can actually now make this a focal point of how we bring on board new clients and make it, a unique selling point of what we do.
That's a really good question. I don't know. I don't know if I know. It didn't dawn on me because literally, I mean, when we started this, hardly anyone was even doing fixed fee. So it sort of evolved. If I'm honest, I think it was probably around 2009. So we've been tinkering with it and getting it right for sort of 3 years. Surviving. At that point we were not thriving. We were just surviving as a business. We were young and poor and in a very difficult space. And I think it was when other people started going, oh, okay, that's just like a subscription. But even then, people said more like a membership, because even that word subscription wasn't used that much back then. The closest thing people could equate it to back then was a gym membership. That was the closest. That was the nearest kind of thing. And go, well, you've got a gym membership and you could go to every class every day, or you could never use it, but regardless, you're not getting a refund. Like, that was the best way we could describe it. And then obviously, as you had Love Film, which again, for younger people, they probably won't remember that, but that was like DVDs by post. I met the CEO of Love Film at the time, actually, at a awards thing, Simon Calvert, it was back then, and he said, oh, it's like a subscription for accountancy. I get it, because that's what we do. And then I was like, yeah. But then, of course, no one really, and again, sometimes you are ahead of the curve. If I was at that point, we couldn't describe the service as a subscription service to anybody, because no one knew what that was. We can say, we've got an accountancy subscription service, and everyone's like, I don't understand. You can't sell something that people don't understand. So we just had to go, oh, it's like accountancy, but we kind of like divide your fee over 12. And then everyone go, oh, I see. Like, you have to use parlance that everybody kind of understands. So it's only now, I say, really, and you know what, even through COVID, that subscription has really become a buzzword within the accountancy world. I think even maybe 2 years ago, we were probably the only people using it. That's a very bold statement there. Someone's going to come at me now and say they were using it way before, but I'm sticking with it. You're not on air. But actually, as the world's evolved and we started, like you said, Netflix, Spotify, and then you've got things like Peloton and other subscriptions that have kind of gone into that space. It's kind of now become much more kind of commonplace to hear that word, which on one hand makes it a lot easier because it genuinely describes what we do. So that's a lot easier. On the other hand, it makes it a bit harder because you have a lot of people out there describing what they do as that, and it isn't really that. So that makes it, but that's always the case with everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it's the way the world is going. It's because, I think people these days are more inclined to spend money on experiences rather than things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Huge amounts for vehicles. I mean, and even Porsche now have a subscription where you can subscribe to Porsche, and what they found is they're actually reaching out to an audience which previously wouldn't have driven Porsches because it was much more older population. But now they're actually getting into this younger population, and they can have a direct relationship with the customer, which wasn't existent before.
Yeah, exactly.
So and we've had that all along as accountants. We've had that for years and years. We've had people come back to us year on year, provided we didn't make complete pig zero or something. They just came back, and no matter, we had to be really bad for a client to leave us. But it's now actually using that and throwing in the fact that yes, it's not, we don't have to charge people for every phone call or every email. If they're subscribed to us, if they're a member of our organization, then we should be there for them whenever they need us and have a package that's suitable. And the key really here is knowing who your audience is, knowing who your market is, and make it successful. That is a starting point, because if you try and do this for everyone and anyone, then you won't be able to succeed, as you kind of pointed out.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so any questions? If you've got any questions for Lucy, do put them in the comments and I'm happy to throw them at her. Oh, actually, Mojo Accounting has a question. So she says, I have a question on staff when you are scaling. How do you bring your team along with your vision and make them more accountable?
Oh, I wish I knew the answer to that. Oh, yeah. So some people, do you know what? This is really interesting. We had this conversation at a board meeting a couple of weeks ago. Some people will be really interested in the overall vision and really want to get behind the company. And when you're small, you kind of need that. You need people in your corner. You need people in your team to be like, everyone's pulling the same direction. We're in this together. And some people will just get on board with the vision. And I've got to be honest, some people don't care. And you can't make them care. And nothing you do, you can do all the engagement, you can read all the books, you can do all the hugs in the world, and they don't care. And that's okay. That's okay, as long as they do their job. If they don't do their job and they don't care, you've got a problem, and obviously you need to kind of get rid of those people. But sometimes I think it's become very trendy and very, this is probably not a particularly popular opinion now, but it's become very on vogue to put a lot of stuff into startup. And we see Google on their ball pits and Netflix and their pup days or whatever they are. And we see all this, go, oh yeah, wouldn't it be cool to be that company that did that? Do you know what? I'm not big enough to do that. Most companies aren't. Brewdog giving a week's paternity leave for their staff who've got a new dog. That's lovely. I can't afford to do that. Like, you're having a laugh. One of my staff's got 4 dogs. Like, that's ridiculous. So there's all these things. It's been very trendy, and we fear that we're going to lose people to these sort of super trendy company. But actually, the people who like want to get on board with that kind of stuff want to get on board with you as well. If they're on board with that as a vision, they'll be on board with your vision. You've just got to communicate it clearly. You've got to say why it benefits everybody else. And do you know what? Don't hide away from the fact that as the business owner, you're doing this for you as well. Like, you're not only doing it for everybody else. Yes, one of my biggest loves is seeing, so our director of operations, Danielle, she's been with us since she was a part-time bookkeeper. She's been with us for 14, 15 years now. She's developed from that into a chartered accountant in charge of kind of basically running the ship. She's the captain. I love seeing that. That's amazing. But she also was only able to do that because she believed in the vision of Mazuma and what we were doing. She quite often jokes, we cut her, she bleeds purple. So she's really on board with what we do. But we've had staff who've come in and given a really valuable contribution. And you know what? I haven't really cared about what the overall vision is because they're out for themselves, and not in a negative way. They want career development. And as a smaller firm, you can't always offer that. If you think about why all of us went into working for ourselves, or who we used to be when we worked for other people, all of us were the sort of people that wanted development. We wanted to grow. And people will sometimes come to you, take their experience and leave. As long as they do a good job whilst they're there, I don't see that as being problematic. The problems you have are when you have people who are just doing enough to survive because they never particularly excel. They never particularly get on board. They're always a little bit of kind of like, oh, if they could just do an extra couple of percent, it would just be that much easier. But they're never quite there. But you will always get those people. So I'd say it's lovely to have people on board with your vision, but actually don't worry too much if they're not. As long as you make it really clear what they're supposed to be doing every day, and what behaviors will make you happy with them and what behaviors will make you cross with them, and everyone knows the rules. And this is a contract, it's an employment contract, goes both ways. You're paying somebody in return for goods and or services. You can still make that work. You can.
Definitely. Thanks for that. Hopefully, Mojo. Sorry, I don't know your name. Mojo Accounting. Let's
just say it's Mojo. I like the name Mojo. That's fine.
Yes, fantastic name for an accounting firm. Very different. Yeah, no, definitely. I think I'd echo that in terms of people. It's not. We don't need to offer all these fancy benefits and pool tables and ping pong tables and all that kind of stuff. It's the little things which make our team members, our employees happy, and that's things like giving them autonomy in how they get the work done, where they work, and make them clearly accountable to say, well, it doesn't matter where you do something, or where you are and how you do it, as long as the work gets done, and actually outlining what that is. Most people don't know what they expect of their team. So how can you then turn around and say, well, actually, you didn't do this, or you didn't do that? Well, you didn't actually spell out what it was that you wanted me to do. So it's just about getting very clear on what you expect, and then let them get on with it, and holding them accountable to it. And autonomy and accountability.
Absolutely.
Okay, another question from Saleh Hakim. Software. What software do you plan on using for the sole trader MTD clients when the dreaded change will be implemented?
Well, we've actually built our own, so that's what we did. So we've got our own system called Mazap, which we use, and that takes it from a pile of receipts, scans, puts it through, and then we've got ledger, profit and loss balance sheet, trial balance, and MTD filing capabilities within that. So we actually built our own. That's probably not the answer you wanted, because that doesn't really help. But like I said, this is something that we have built a platform now, so we're hoping we can maybe start offering. I'm not shilling here, but start offering out that platform for other people to use, because we really recognise that MTD question around the MTD ITSAs. That's going to be a particularly very price sensitive space to be in terms of how do you get a client to pay for a bit of software to do it if you want them to do it, or how do you do it yourself and somehow recoup your costs in that? So we're looking at building a solution that can be used for that, really. Like I said, we started doing it for ourselves, and then we'll see if it works for other people.
And I'm guessing the same applies to your scanning software, right? You've got your own.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We do hook into, so for OCR, we hook into other people who exist with data extraction, because I haven't got the time nor patience to build that, but we can hook that up to other providers. But we built that.
Question coming in here from Danny, I believe. What's a good platform to use for providing a subscription service?
Do you mean in terms of payment?
I'm not really sure what Danny means. I presume so, because I guess it's not the subscription is just the way you offer your services. And I'm guessing in terms of the payment, can people sign up directly? They're going to go on the website and just become a client, and it's all seamless, and payments just get taken then by direct debit or Stripe or something straight from the website?
Yeah, so we use direct debit. So we've got direct debit origination, which we can use. But you can do it, obviously, if you think about subscription, you could do it there again, like going back to the early days when we very first started. That kind of thing was impossible to do. You could sometimes, I think, do recurring payments on PayPal, but that was about it. Now you've got Stripe, Go Cardless, SumUp, you've got all these providers. I'd say just shop around and go for one that firstly works for you as a price point, and secondly for an ease of use. You want something that you control, though. So you want something. So obviously with subscription services, and especially if you're going down the direct debit route, the direct debit guarantee means the client can cancel at any time, and there are very strict rules around when you are or not allowed to pull that sort of thing. Make sure you've got that in your contracts. Like if you're going down subscription, you've got to make it really clear what happens if they don't pay. So is it that you'll try and take it again? Or is it that you'll, in order to keep the subscription live, or is it that services just stop and then you block everything and they can't go into it? It's a delicate thing to do in accountancy, because you are dealing with, it's a professional service, you're dealing with sensitive information. So we go down the route of being really clear. If it fails on this attempt, we'll try it again on the next. And then if it fails again, then we'll say, look, you've got 5 days and we're going to, you kind of block access until it's up to date. But have one that you can control, and that you set the rules around, so that you have that control, because the last thing you need on a subscription service is a load of time doing admin, figuring out who's paid when and how and where. Something with great reporting, something with alerts when people cancel or something doesn't pull, they're fantastic. So you can get on it straight away, and something with good amounts of automation will save you a lot of time.
Excellent. So is that something that you don't use Go Cardless or anything? You have your own direct relationship with a bank?
Yeah. So we're through London and Zurich.
Yeah, good. Cool. Okay. Do you plan to charge for the additional MTD submissions that are coming? Question from Sarah.
Nope.
Okay. All included. All inclusive within the subscription.
All included in the subscription. Yeah. All included. Yeah. What we have done though, so again, because we're in that kind of accounts tech space. Is that a term? Yeah, let's say it is. It's accounts tech. In that kind of space, we are it is now. I said it first. Did I? Maybe. Yeah, we're in that kind of accounts tax space. So we're somewhere between, it's like an accountant driven SaaS platform. So in order to make our lives more easier on that, more easier, horrible English, in order to make our lives easier, sorry everyone, or the grammar pedants out there, but myself, I am one of them. In order to make our lives easier, we've introduced SaaS style pricing. So we've got different levels. So we've within the sole trader market, for example, you can have basic, standard, plus, and premium, and each of those gives you, slightly different accesses, slightly different speeds of things. Slightly different turnaround times in terms of X weeks after your year end, your accounts will be completed and stuff like that. And that's how we're going to be able to accommodate the additional cost of filing MTD. We're not directly passing it back to the client, but we know that if we offer up a range of pricing, X% will go high, X% will go low, and then overall it means that that's covered. So again, it's that theory of going for the overall rather than the individual.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Okay, one more question we'll take. Kevin's here on the screen. For your client base who are closer to the 250K revenue mark and the highest fee tier, do you consider offering advisory, or do you refer to another accounting partner? I think we know the answer to that, don't we?
Oh, now we could go into the whole what is advisory debate here, couldn't we? That's the hot topic in the accounting world. So as part of our service, we obviously offer advice. I mean, you're not an accountant if you're not offering some form of advice. If somebody's going into that space where they're wanting, you can have someone who turns over 250K who raises one invoice a month and has very limited things. They don't need advisory. They just need standard compliance and the kind of, what I'd say is kind of more bread and butter advice that people get. When you get into maybe more complex kind of high growth businesses or kind of scale ups, and we start identifying them, then and that happens at not necessarily at the kind of top range, but it happens when they need it. So if they are the client might be turning over no money, but they've had a load of seed investment or a Series A, and they've got these big plans, that they're not our client. They're not for us. They've got people way better equipped to deal with that kind of motivation in terms of the business, and we'll help them identify a new advisor and kind of maybe introduce them to a few people we know. But obviously advice comes as part of the service, but to a degree, when we start going into the realms of complexities or people wanting things like, I want a business plan, I want kind of 5-year cash flow forecast and all that kind of stuff, that steps out of what the subscription does, and so we then introduce them to somebody else.
Fantastic. Okay, well, we're nearly out of time. We've got a couple of final questions for you. If your question hasn't been answered, then still put it in the comments and tag myself or Lucy in, and hopefully when Lucy has a minute or two spare, she will potentially answer your question in the comments. So what I wanted to ask, Lucy, is what would you say has been one of your biggest learning points over the years? As you said, some things work, some things don't. So what's something that perhaps you've done that hasn't worked, that you have learned from and come back stronger, and that has been kind of a turning point in your learning journey to where you are today? I've
got two. One entertaining and one less interesting. So I'll go for the less interesting one first. People don't care about you putting your price up. As a whole, people don't care. Accountants generally have a really big fear of putting price up. Oh, I've got to do a price. Oh no. Oh, my clients will leave. They won't. You'll get 2 or 3 people have a bit of a whinge, but they'll probably still stay. Prices go up. It's life. Stop worrying about it. Just do it. That's number one. I spent ages really kind of obsessing over the wording of how we kind of, politely and subtly tell people like, oh, really? Also, don't apologize for it. Price is going up. Like, girls got to eat. You got to get this stuff done. Oh, I'm really sorry. Your price is going up. Oh, we hate to do it. Nah, prices go up. Doesn't matter. Don't give it any more thought. Schedule it in once a year. Get it done. Forget about it. That's how it is. So that's number one. Number two is about trusting yourself. So I've told this story in kind of on other forums, but it's valuable here. At the height of Dragon's Den, and when everyone was like, get an advisor, you don't know what you don't know, get all the right people in, which I do believe in, obviously, but the key phrase there is right people. We somehow, despite the fact we managed to grow our firm from nothing to around that time about a kind of 300K turnover in a couple of years, somehow believed that we were no good at sales. Somehow got it into our heads that we couldn't sell. So wanted to bring on a sales director. And this guy came in, giving it all that, big chat. Anyway, long story short, we took on this huge, on his advice, like, yeah, this is going to be huge. And we were two young women. We just needed somebody to be in our corner. We'd obviously spent a lot of time fighting against people going, this will never work. You're not doing it right, all that kind of stuff. So as soon as someone came in and was like, this is amazing, we're like, yes, it is amazing. I believe everything this man says. And we bought into it. We took on this huge office. We didn't have enough clients to pay the new staff we'd taken on. We didn't have enough clients to pay the rent. And he ghosted us and he disappeared. Yeah, he disappeared and we couldn't, he just disappeared and couldn't get hold of him. And we had a contract and everything in place. We're not stupid. But if someone ghosts you, like, contracts are worthless. If someone ghosts you, they ghost you. What can you do? We had a contract in place, but did we have enough money at that point for any legal fees? Absolutely not. Yeah, so we just had to, I remember sitting on the floor of our conference room, hilarious. What did we need a conference room for? Yeah, just in pieces, crying. And then we're like, right, here we are, shoe leather time, back out there, back at it. And that's what we did. So yeah, trust yourself. You know your business.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Great bit of advice from the trenches there. And finally, is there kind of any one kind of book you've read or piece of advice you've received that has really transformed your thinking and helped you that you would recommend to others?
Oh, I do that thing where I read so many books. It's hard to pick one. So there's one book I'm a bit obsessed with, and I'm not condoning this as advice. It's not advice. But if anyone's ever read the Theranos story of Elizabeth Holmes and the Theranos story, go and read that because it is a fascinating insight into selling yourself when you don't have any product. Whenever, and it's kind of like this kind of reverse kind of motivation thing. Whenever I get a bit of like, oh, I can't do this, or this is too hard, and why is nothing ever easy, or you're pitching in front of somebody and you kind of have to believe in yourself. I quite often think about Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos and think about how she managed to become a Forbes youngest ever billionaire without actually having any sort of product that worked. So obviously that's massively fraudulent and she'll probably go to prison. But I quite often think about that and having that confidence and having that kind of unwavering belief in yourself. And I'm a pretty confident person, but even I waver now and again. That's a really fascinating insight into it. I think it's a really good book to read, just because it's also really fascinating insight into raising money and like how that works. And yeah, very interesting book called Bad Blood, the Elizabeth Holmes story.
Fantastic. It's not one I've heard of. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for attending today, everyone, if you're here. And Lucy, thank you so much for being here. It's been amazing listening to your story. And if you're watching, I'm sure you've taken away a few nuggets yourself, things that pop out to me with the fact that, yeah, put your prices up. You've heard it from me before, and I've heard it from Lucy. So put your prices up because you need to. And clients don't care. So absolutely do that. And the other one is, of course, positioning. Know who your client is. That is so, so important in order to be able to build a scalable and profitable practice. So once again, thank you so much for attending. If you have any ideas and want me to bring on any other accountants you might know that are doing great things, pop me a message and we will catch up very soon, no doubt. Thanks once again, Lucy, and take care, everyone. Speak to you soon. Bye for now.
Everyone.